It took 25 years to unravel this terrible story. American University student Christine Smart left a party and disappeared without a trace. From the first days, the police had a suspect, but they could not prove his guilt. Only several decades later, one caring person unearthed the terrible details of this case, attracted the attention of millions of people to it, and forced the police to reopen the investigation. An American University student left the party and soon disappeared without a trace. The police had a suspect literally from the first days, but they could not prove his guilt. And only 25 years later, one ordinary person was able to attract public attention to the case and resume the investigation. Christine Smart was born on February 20, 1977 in the German city of Augsburg. But in early childhood she moved to the United States with her parents, brother and sister. They settled in Stockton, California. Christine's parents worked as teachers for children of American military personnel. In 1996, Christine graduated from high school and entered California Polytechnic University. In her free time, the girl worked as a lifeguard at a recreation center on campus. On May 25, 1996, a large party was to be held at the fraternity house to celebrate the birthday of one of the students. Christine planned to go to this party, but her friends refused this idea, and the girl ended up going to the party alone. The party took place in the most typical style for American students. A large group drank alcohol, listened to music, and generally had a fun time. That evening, Christine miscalculated her strength and drank too much. She felt sick and went to her dorm around 2 a.m. True, the girl was practically unable to walk on her own. She was noticed on the street by two other students, Cheryl Anderson and Tim Davis, and they decided to walk her home. Two students were also present at that party. After some time, they were joined by another student from the party, Paul Flores. He offered to walk Christine to the dorm because he lived closest to this place. Cheryl and Tim, who had to go in the other direction, said goodbye to him and left. Since then, no one has seen Christine alive again. At first, Christine's disappearance was not given much importance. Christine's roommate, Margarita Campos, was the first to worry. She was sure that her friend would return home after the party, but this did not happen. What was also alarming was that all the girl's belongings, including her passport, wallet, and bank card, were all left in the room. From this it follows that she could not simply leave somewhere without taking with her the most necessary things. Margarita contacted the campus police only 2 days after Christine disappeared. Most likely, she hoped to the last that everything was okay with Christine and she would return home. But campus police did not take Margarita's statement seriously because it was the weekend and then the U.S. National Memorial Day, dedicated to fallen American servicemen. The police decided that Christine had simply gone home. Moreover, no one was embarrassed by the fact that documents and all important things remained in the room. Another thing worth noting is the fact that it was a 7-hour drive from campus to Christine's house, where her parents lived. It becomes obvious that this is too far for a spontaneous trip without money or documents, even in the middle of the night. And only a few days after filing the application, the police decided to call Christine's parents. The girl's mother said over the phone that her daughter had not come home for a long time and had not called her in recent days. After this call, the parents were very concerned and went to the police. But those police were also in no particular hurry to open an investigation. The police told the parents that not much time had passed since Christine disappeared, and the girl could easily have just been out with friends. The search began only on the 4th day after the girl went missing. It started with volunteers looking for Christine, but the search did not yield any results. The first person questioned by police was Paul Flores, the same one who then accompanied the girl home. Paul told detectives that he and Christine walked to her dorm before saying goodbye, and she went home alone. After this, Paul allegedly went home and went straight to bed. But inconsistencies were quickly found in Paul's story. Paul's dorm neighbors saw him take a shower around 5 a.m., while he and Christine separated after 2 a.m. Paul also had a black eye and scratches on his knees. When asked by several people, he told 3 different stories about the origin of the injuries. In general, he looked extremely suspicious, but there was no direct evidence against him. Meanwhile, a month has passed since Christine disappeared, and the police expanded the search area for the girl to her hometown. In the girl's hometown, journalists fanned the case, citing the similarity of Christine's story with the disappearance of Laura Palmer in the TV series Twin Peaks. The news also mentioned psychics who expressed the version that Christina was killed by 2 men on campus, after which they were taken to a cliff and thrown into the water. Naturally, these statements to the police yielded nothing. A year after Christine disappeared, her parents sued Flores for his involvement in the girl's disappearance. In 1997, Paul testified under oath, but of all the questions he answered only one, when he was asked to give his name. In other cases, he invoked the Fifth Amendment, which allows a suspect not to incriminate himself. And after that, Paul's parents sued Christine's family on charges of emotional distress. However, both lawsuits came to nothing. The police still had no evidence against Paul. On May 25, 2002, the 6th anniversary of Christine's disappearance, authorities officially declared her dead. And during all this time, the police have not been able to get 1 centimeter closer to solving the mystery. This continued until 2018. Then a California resident named Chris Lambert decided to launch his own series of podcasts dedicated to various crimes. After 22 years, Lambert decided to conduct his own investigation. The results of his research amazed Chris. He simply could not believe how negligently the police treated the investigation. First of all, Chris decided to talk to all the witnesses of those events. He learned from university students that Paul Flores had a very bad reputation. Paul repeatedly molested female students, but it never resulted in formal complaints. Chris then analyzed the police actions. He came to the conclusion that the police made a number of grave mistakes. So, detectives came to the house of Paul's father, Ruben Flores, only 2 months after Christine's disappearance. It is strange that the search was not carried out immediately, given the fact that Paul lived with his father. But even after 2 months, the police conducted the search extremely carelessly. For some reason, the detectives did not bring with them forensic scientists and sniffer dogs, which are specially trained to search for remains. Because of this, the search turned out to be virtually useless. Detectives also did not examine the Flores family's 2 cars, one of which Paul could have used to take Christine from campus to her father's house. A few months after the police's visit, one of the cars was sold altogether, and the second, according to the owners, was stolen. The police did not come to Paul's mother's house at all, although, as it turned out, one of the main clues was hiding there. Chris Lambert discovered that 4 months after Christine's disappearance, a woman named Mary Lessiter rented Paul's mother's house. In one of the rooms, the woman found an earring that was the same as the necklace Christine was wearing on the night of her disappearance. The same necklace was in photographs of the girl that were posted on billboards literally everywhere. Mary noticed this similarity and took the earring to the police. However, the police initially refused to accept the evidence in the case file, and then they lost the earring altogether. The yard at Paul's mother's house was always filled with concrete. But soon after Christine disappeared, a piece of concrete was cut out from there, and a flower bed was created there. Isn't it strange? Mary Lessiter, who rented the house, told Chris a very creepy fact. The first time after moving, every day, at 4:20 in the morning and at 4:20 in the afternoon, she heard a sound like an alarm clock on her wristwatch. The sound came from the backyard of the house, and from under that very flower bed. One day the sound stopped. Most likely, the watch's battery ran out, or it was dug up and thrown away somewhere. With this information, Chris Lambert went to Christine's mother. When the woman heard the story about the alarm clock, she was literally speechless. She could not utter a word for several minutes. Then the woman said that Christine always set her alarm for 4 to 8 a.m. because she had to be at work at the campus recreation center at 5 a.m. When Lambert's podcast went live in 2019, it had more than 6 million listeners. The public was literally shocked that the police did nothing, and thanks to this, the killer is still at large. And the new evidence and clues that Chris found only strengthen the negative mood. As a result, the police department finally decided to take on this case. And now, more than 20 years later, they still did their job properly. Police searched 4 locations, including Paul Flores' home. At first, the police only said that they were able to find evidence of interest to the investigation. On January 29, 2020, police announced that they had seized 2 of Paul's cars as evidence. Then it became known that they had finally excavated the yard at Paul's mother's house, but Christine's body was not there. However, the police insisted that they were able to obtain evidence that there were, in fact, signs of human decomposition under the flower bed. On February 11, 2021, news broke that Paul Flores had been arrested. But the reason for the arrest was possession of an unregistered weapon. On March 15, 2021, a judge issued a search warrant for Paul's father's home, and on April 13, father and son were taken into custody, this time in connection with Christine's disappearance. The court charged Paul with murder, and his father was charged as an accessory. According to the investigation, when Paul and Christine were left alone, he began to pester the girl, but was refused. This explains the origin of scratches and bruises. During the struggle, Paul could have killed Christine, after which he loaded her into the car and drove her to the house. Then he and his father buried the body in the backyard of Paul's mother's house and disguised the place as a flower bed. After some time, they simply decided to dig up the remains and move them to an unknown location. The father and son have pleaded not guilty, and legal proceedings continue to this day. But there are a lot of facts and evidence working against them, so punishment is unlikely to be avoided. Kristen's parents made a public appeal, thanking Chris Lambert and millions of caring people for helping to get to the bottom of the truth.